Today we are going to be building another bottle. Bottles are nice surfacing challenges because they tend to have very organic shapes. This bottle is for a fabric treatment product that's used as a pre-wash for laundry. What makes this particular bottle an interesting challenge is that a lot of bottles can be formed out of one loft or boundary, and then the rest of the details can be added or subtracted. This one has a side face and neck area that are all blended together as one contiguous surface. And then the front surface and left side wrap around as sort of a contiguous surface as well. For this reason, we have to build all of the surfaces as separate panels and then knit them all together. I'll begin the tutorial by showing you all of the layout sketches and planes I used that all the remaining features are based upon. I've rolled back the feature tree to the very first feature, and here we see the front layout. We see the edges of the bottle, the neck area, and the left edge. And then this edge here is slightly inboard of the outer edge, which represents the forward edge of the front face. This edge is a forward edge of the front face as well. The next layout sketch just shows the shape of the handle area, which is cut out of the bottle. And we have another layout which shows the shape of the base of the bottle. Then I've added a plane to the left of the right plane, which I call the leftmost plane. A plane at the top in the neck area. And a little layout sketch that just represents the top circular shape of the neck area here. And then finally, I have a layout which is on the right plane, which represents the shape of the bottle right in the center or middle of the bottle. I'm going to start the surfacing of the bottle by first creating the very front surface. This is going to be done by taking the bottom curve of the base and sweeping it along this middle curve. And that will give us a nice gentle compound curve in this area. So I start that by first making a sketch on the bottom plane, or actually the top plane, and then copying this curve into my sketch using convert entities. That's all I have to do here. I'll close the sketch, and that sketch will become the sweep profile. The next sketch I need to make is the sweep path, which is going to be copying this curve into a new sketch. So on my right plane, I'll make a new sketch and just simply copy this curve from the layout sketch, and I'll finish the sketch. Now I can make my surface sweep. So I'll choose the swept surface command, and I'll pick the two sketches that I just made off of the flyout menu. So I'll just scroll down here. For my profile, I will select the first sketch that I made, and for the path, I will select the second sketch that I made. Here we see the profile, and we'll just go ahead and finish that command. So here we see our very first surface. It's just a gentle compound surface, and I'll look at this from the front view. We see that it just fits in within the confines of what will become the front surface of our bottle. It's actually not a bad idea when you copy this sketch down here to stretch it out just a little bit to either side, so that when you trim this surface, you'll get a good clean trim down at these corners. The next step will be to trim this surface so that it matches the shape of the front of the bottle. To do that, I'm going to copy this edge here from my front layout, and I'll go to my front plane and make a new sketch. I'm using convert entities. I'll copy this edge and this edge from my layout sketch. And I need to just do a little trimming here, so I'll trim off this excess little piece. Then I can go to my surfaces again and say trim surface. And the sketch that I was working on should just automatically pop into the trim toolbox. And I'm going to actually keep this middle section here, throwing away these outer bits. Finish the command. Now we've got a front surface that matches the shape of the bottle. Our next step is going to be to build the left side face of the bottle, and to do this we're going to use a boundary surface. Boundaries require 4 edges, and we are going to have 1, 2, 3, and the 4th edge will be here. The only problem is that we have nowhere in our layout sketches the curve that's going to connect this corner to this corner. That's a 3-dimensional curve. It's going to curve slightly upward in the left-hand view and curve in this direction in the top view. So there's 2 ways to accomplish this before we make the boundary. One is to draw 2 curves in 2 different planes and project them together, or the other is to make a 3D sketch and just draw a 3-dimensional spline from this point to this point. I'll show you the projected curve method first. I'll look at the left side of the bottle, and on the leftmost plane I will draw a sketch, and I'm going to draw a simple arc. It's going to start at this point, come off into this area, and I want to make sure that it's dished downward. And I'm going to add a construction line that is horizontal. These are automatically tangent to each other now, if they aren't at a tangent relation. And I'll rotate the view and make sure that this point and this point are coincident with each other. I also need to make sure that this tangent line is horizontal, which apparently it is not at the moment. So I'll just click on that and add a horizontal relation. Now we've seen our curve go to black, which means it's fully defined. You can see it has just a very subtle upward curve to it. So I'll close this sketch. And now I'll work on the top view of the very same element, which will be projected with this sketch. So looking at my top view, I'm going to sketch on my neck top plane. And once again, I'm going to make a 3-point arc. I'm going to attach it to this point here. I'll just sketch out in this area to start with. And I'll make sure that this is bowing off to the left side. I will make a vertical construction line that will be used for tangency with the curve. So I'll make these 2 tangent to each other. And I want to make this point and this point coincident. Now if you're wondering why I'm adding these construction lines, it's because I want to make sure that when I make one half of the bottle and then mirror it to the other side, that I have a seamless blend between the original side of the bottle and its mirrored twin. To do that, I have to make sure that any curves that I draw that are going to go into the mirror plane, which is my front plane, have to go straight into that mirror plane or normal to it. So adding this construction line, which is vertical in this case, which is going normal to my front plane, will guarantee that when I make this projected curve with the curve I just previously drew, that the projected curve will also be going normal to the front plane, so that when I mirror this surface here, it will seamlessly blend with its twin over here. So I'll just finish this sketch now. And what I want to do is take the 2 sketches that I just drew, this one and this one, and make a projected sketch which will be a 3-dimensional sketch that will go from this point to this point in three-dimensional space. So to do that, I go to Insert, Curve, Projected. I use the Sketch on Sketch option, and I just click on these two sketches. And we see the highlight of these sketches. Turning on my curves and turning off my sketches, now I can see what that curve looks like. So it's going from the front plane to this point in 3D space, and from the top view you see that it's curved like the top view sketch that I drew, and from the left side view we see that it's curved upward like the left side curve that I drew. I mentioned there was another way to do this, so I will just quickly demonstrate that. I'll roll back my feature tree, turn my sketches back on, and I want to draw a three-dimensional curve in 3D space going from this point to this point. So going to my 3D sketches, I will first select Spline, and I'll click on this point in my layout sketch, and I want to make sure that I grab this point, which is the corner of my front surface. Hit Escape, and what I want to do is view this directly from the left side. When I'm viewing this from the left side and making adjustments, I should not be affecting the shape of this curve when viewing it from the top view. So I'll just click on this and grab one of the control handles, and I will make this control handle be along the Z direction. The Z direction is coming directly out of my front plane, which is also going to be my mirror plane. So we'll select along Z, and we see this has a nice gentle upward curve like before, and it's coming straight out of the mirror plane. Now I'm going to look at it from my top view and see how it looks from there. We see it's still coming straight out of the mirror plane, and it's got a nice gentle curve that's going right to this point. It's bowing to the left like we need it to be. So I don't think I need to make any changes in this view at all. So we'll look at this off axis. We can see what this looks like in 3 dimensions. If I roll forward to the projected curve that I made, we see that it's not too different from this 3D sketch that I made. The two are practically on top of each other. So you might find that to be a less laborious way of making this curve from this point to this point. I'm going to stick with the original projected sketch that I made for the rest of this tutorial. So now all we have to do to make our boundary is to copy some of the elements from the layout sketches for the remaining 3 edges of the boundary. We need to copy this edge here and this edge here, and we don't actually have to copy this edge here. We can just attach our boundary directly to the edge of this surface that we made earlier. So selecting our top plane, we will make a new sketch. We'll just copy this edge from the base layout and simply finish the sketch. Then on our front plane, we make a new sketch again. We'll copy this edge from the front layout using, again, convert entities, and finish the sketch. Now we should have everything we need to make this boundary on this side. So I'll go to Surfaces, Boundary, and for direction 1, I will select the 2 long edges of the boundary. One of those edges is the sketch that I just created. The other edge is this almost vertical edge of my front surface. And you notice that what's happened is that this has gotten twisted. That's because I'm trying to join a pink dot to a green dot when I want to go green dot to green dot. So all I have to do is untwist this by selecting either one of these in my direction 1 box. Right click and say Flip Connectors. Now I've got pink dot to pink dot and green dot to green dot. So now going the other direction, in direction 2, I'll activate that box. I will select this curve that I made earlier. And down at the bottom, I'll select the little sketch that I made just a few minutes ago. Now what I want to make sure is that later when I mirror the bottle, that this new surface is going to go normal to my mirror plane so that I get a smooth, seamless blend when I mirror the twin to this side. That means that this edge right here, which is at the mirror plane, needs to be changed to normal to profile. And I finish the boundary. This is what we have so far. The next step is going to be to build this neck area of the bottle. And the neck area sort of starts on the left and blends all the way down to the right side of the bottle. If we try to build this as one giant surface that starts up here and falls down the side of the bottle, I think it's not going to be a very good looking surface. So what we are going to do is build one surface here and later build another surface attached to it for the right hand side of the bottle and the right hand side of the neck. No matter how we slice the surface up, we're going to end up with an odd number of edges. So if we build this corner here, we will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges, which suggests we should be using a fill surface. If we use a fill surface, we want to make sure that the fill surface is going normal to profile at the mirror plane. So this is the edge that's going to be at the mirror plane, and unfortunately there is no normal to profile option on fill surfaces. So what we have to do is extrude a temporary surface from this edge that we can attach the fill surface to. We also need to copy 1/4 of the neck area here, and also we want to make sure that the fill surface is going normal to profile on the right hand plane of our bottle. And again, we don't have a normal to profile option, so what we have to do is copy this edge and temporarily extrude a surface in this direction that we can attach our fill surface to. So sketching on my front plane, I will copy this edge using convert entities, and then I will just extrude this in the -z direction. And the extrude distance is not important, it's arbitrary, so I'll just leave it at 0.1 inches, and I'll flip the direction so that this is going off in the -z. We have our temporary surface here. This is what we're going to be attaching one edge of the fill surface to. So our next step is going to be to build the temporary surface that's on the midline of the bottle, and we're going to attach the fill surface to that. So on our right plane, we make a new sketch, and all we have to do is copy this edge here, again using convert entities, surfaces, and extrude that, and we want to make sure that it's going off to the right. So now we have 4 of the 5 edges that we need. The last edge is just going to be this quadrant of the circle for the neck. So on our neck top plane, we will make a new sketch. We will copy the entire neck layout. We need to get just 1/4 of this, so what I'm going to do is draw a construction line from the origin out in this direction and make sure that this is going vertical, and another construction line going off to the left, making sure that this has a horizontal relation, and then I can just use my trim entities. Turn off my sketches for a moment, and here we see we'll just get 1/4 of the original full circle. Now finish that sketch. Let's turn off our layout sketches and show the sketch that I just made. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges. The only trouble is that when you use the fill surface, you want the edges to all connect together from one end to the next. We're going to be using this edge of our front surface for part of the fill, but this edge is going past this edge here, and that can often cause the fill surface to fail. We need this edge to end right at this point. So what we can do is split this front surface so that this edge ends right here. We'll do that using the right-hand plane. So we'll say Insert, Curve, Split Line. We're going to use the intersection option. We're going to intersect the front surface with the right plane. So our first box is going to be the splitting surface, which is the right plane. The second box then will be the surface being split. Here we see a preview of the split line. Now if I click on this surface, you see the surface is split into two faces. And that means that this edge is going to end right at this edge, which is exactly what we need. We now have everything we need to make our first fill surface. I'll turn my sketches back on, and now I can go to Filled Surface, and my boundary is going to be this edge, this sketch, this edge, and finally this edge. Make sure that you have your curves turned off so that you're grabbing the edge of a surface rather than a curve or a sketch. Now I need to make a few adjustments to my tangency controls. This edge here, we want the surface to go straight into the mirror plane. We've attached this edge of the fill to this temporary edge here. That's this one I'm highlighting, and we want to change this to tangent. That's the same in this case as going normal to profile with a boundary surface, because this is going tangent to a surface which is normal to the mirror plane. This edge here can be contact. This edge here also we want to go normal to the middle plane, which in this case is the right-hand plane. So I'll change this to tangent. We see some subtle changes to the surface in the zebra stripes, and this edge here can remain as contact. There is our first fill surface. Now I'm going to hide this temporary surface. I don't actually need it anymore. And now we are ready to build the right-hand surface of the bottle. So that's going to fill in this area here from the left side of the neck all the way down to the right-hand side of the bottle. This is again going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-sided surface, which means that once again we need to use a fill surface. The only additional temporary surface that we need is going to be on this edge here where the mirror plane is located. We don't need to build a temporary surface here because we're going to attach this new surface directly to the fill surface that we just created. So making a sketch on our front plane, I will just copy this edge here from the front layout, and I will extrude this in arbitrary dimension. I want this to go in the negative Z direction, so I'll just flip my direction 1. 0.1 inches is fine, and just finish that surface. I also have to make this quadrant of the neck area, just like I did before. So on my neck top plane, I will copy the neck top layout. I'll just do it straight from the feature tree here. So I will convert entities. I once again get a full circle here. And again, I want to add a horizontal line here and a vertical line here. Turn off my sketches. I'm going to just utilize this quadrant here with the trim entities, and I'll trim away this portion here. The last thing I need is just a sketch for this bottom corner of the bottle. So again, turning on my sketches and looking at my base layout, I will make a sketch on my top plane and just copy this entity here, convert entities, close the sketch. Now we've got everything we need to make this fill surface. I'm going to hide my front layout. And I'm going to make sure that this sketch here is activated. And we will now make our fill surface. I'll click to this edge here, this quadrant of the neck. This edge of the previous fill surface I made. So you might want to turn off your sketches to make sure you're grabbing the edge of the fill surface and not a sketch. This edge here that was part of the split front face, so you see this edge is ending right here. And then down below, I'll grab the sketch that I just copied here. So I will go to my flyout menu to get that. And before I finish, I want to make sure that this fill surface is going tangent to this temporary surface, which will make it normal to my front plane, which is also my mirror plane. So that's this edge here. Change that to tangent. And I want this smoothly blending to the left side fill surface here. So I can try a tangent or I can try a curvature here. I'm going to try a curvature. That's this edge right here. And I'll say curvature, and it seems like it's going to work, so I will have a nice blend here. Finish that. Let's turn off our sketches. And now we can see how this is nicely blended in with the neck, and if I turn on my zebra stripes, we see that there are smooth zebra stripes going through this joined edge here. Actually, common edge would be a better term to use here. These are not joined or knitted together just yet. So I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping right now. You might recall that we've used 3 temporary surfaces which no longer are needed. So I can just go into my surface bodies. And I know this is a temporary surface here. So I'll just find that surface in my surface bodies. That's here. Right click, delete, keep body. I'll make sure that delete bodies is active. And I'll open the surface bodies again in the flyout menu. And I will select this surface which had been hidden to add it to the list. And I will get rid of this body too. Actually, I can just go ahead and select it right from the graphics area. So I've selected 3 bodies to be deleted, check mark. Those are now out of my model. So we've gotten most of the hard stuff out of the way actually. Now we can knit all the surfaces together that we've created thus far. Going into surfaces, knit, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 surfaces to knit together. And these are now a single surface body, and you can tell that these are knitted because the lines which had been blue where they were meeting are now black. And if we go up into our surface body folder, we see there's just 1 body now. Now we have a fillet to add on to this edge. So features, fillet, and that will be 1/2 inch in radius. Just add that right to the edge there, and we're done. The next thing we're going to work on is the cutout for the handle. So on the front view, turn on my layout sketches again, and we want to cut out the handle to this larger oval size. So front plane, sketch, we'll just copy the larger oval, and then surfaces, trim, and I will just keep all this outer section here, or I can say remove selections and select the middle. So there's the opening for my handle, and then I need to make a surface which is going to go from the smaller oval out to the edges of the opening. The handle surface will just be a boundary surface which will go from one oval to the outer oval. So I need to copy this inner oval here onto my front plane. Grab that, convert entities, and finish the sketch. So now to make my surface here. This is going to be a boundary which just has only direction 1, no direction 2 curves. So I'll go to boundary. I will select this sketch that we just made that's located on the front plane and this edge of the cutout in the front surface. And we see it's badly twisted around. We want to make sure that the green dots are in alignment with each other. So I'll just shift this dot up a little bit and bring this dot down a little bit, which doesn't seem to have helped. That's because this dot's on the wrong side. So I'll drag this over onto this side. And it still looks twisted up, so probably all I have to do is just say flip connectors. And now we see we have a green dot going to a green dot. And we want this surface to have a seamless blend when it gets mirrored to the other side of the bottle. What that means is this surface needs to be going normal to the mirror plane. To do that, we will set this edge here to normal to profile. And that's going to give a little bit of curvature to the surface in this direction also. So let's see what we've got so far. We've got the front face of the bottle, all the front features and the cutout handle and the handle itself. And now I'm ready to make the mirror image of the bottle to complete the back half. I could knit the handle to the front face of the bottle first, but I'm going to be doing some other knitting later on, so I'll just wait to do that. So I will use the front plane as my mirror plane. Going up to the top here, we'll say front plane, and under features we will go to mirror, and I want to make sure I'm using the bodies to mirror box. I will mirror this body here, the main body of the bottle, and the handle body. And I want to check the option knit surfaces. So what will happen is when a copy of each surface is made, it will be knitted to its copy. So here we see that the main front surfaces of the bottle are knitted to the mirrored back half, and this mirrored portion of the handle is knitted to the front portion. However, the handle is not knitted to the main body. Now we are going to make the pour spout at the top. So I'll go to my front view, turn my sketches back on, and this is the portion of the pour spout, and this is a simple revolve. On my front plane, I'll draw a new sketch, and I'm going to draw a construction line that is running right along the right hand plane, and I'm going to copy these 3 lines using convert entities. And I need to trim these so that I only get 1/2 of the pour spout, which is going to be revolved around this construction line. So I will trim away this portion here and these portions here, leaving me just with this section here, which I can now revolve. So going to my surfaces, I simply will say revolve surface, and that gives me the entire pour spout. Now we need to make only one more surface in order to make a watertight solid object, and that's going to be the bottom. So we can do that just by making a planar surface that will fill in this bottom area. Going to the planar surface command, all I have to do is just click on all the blue edges, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You'll get the preview of the planar surface once you've completed a contiguous perimeter, and now we have our bottom. Now we can knit all of our surfaces together and create a solid form. Going to knit surface, total of 4 surfaces are to be knitted together. You'll probably get this gap result in the bottom here, and just leave these checked. And what we want to do is when we knit this all together, we also want to create a solid object. So we check create solid and hit the check mark. Now you might be wondering why we decided to make this a solid, and the main reason is that we are going to make a dent in the bottom using the dome tool, and the dome tool can only be used with solid objects. We give you a preview of what the dent is going to look like. It's mainly just an offset of the outer perimeter, and then the offset is being split so that this becomes two surfaces, and then we use the dome tool to push this in. So backing up, I'm going to make this sketch by copying some elements from my bottom or base layout. So on my top plane, I will make a new sketch. I'm going to turn on my layout sketches again. I'm going to take these three lines from my base layout and offset them inward. So just holding my control key down and clicking on each of these and going to offset entities. I'm going to offset this inward by 0.3 inches. And then I'm going to draw a construction line going from my origin out to the right. Doesn't matter if it's the right or left, but the important thing is the construction line is horizontal, and I can use that to mirror these elements. So I'll just grab all of these now and mirror entities, and that gives me both the front and the back half of what will become the dent. And I want some rounded corners in here, so I will use my radius tool, and I'll make a 0.2 inch radius at each corner. This is going to be the shape of the perimeter of the dent. Now I'm going to use this perimeter to split this bottom into two faces. So I just go into Insert, Curve, Split Line. We're going to use the projection option. The current sketch has already popped into the top box, and in the bottom box we are going to select this bottom face of our solid bottle. Now we see the bottom surface is split into two separate faces. So we've got a solid body, we've got a split face, and we're now ready to use the dome tool. I have it on my feature manager. You might have to search for that tool using the command search. And I'm just going to click on this surface here, and I'm going to tell it that I want it to dent inward by 0.3 inches. You see right now it's bulging outward, so I just flip the direction, and that is pushing inward. You see that it's got these smooth curves that are going to blend in with the outer surface. That's because the continuous dome option is checked at the moment. If it is checked, uncheck it, because what we want is a sharp edge around the perimeter here with a very definite dome shape which is separate from this outer area here. So that's what my dome looks like. You're going to have these little splits where the corner fillets are. You're going to have a very definite edge here. We want that edge there because we're going to add a fillet to this edge later on. The rest of this tutorial goes rather quickly because all we have to do now is fillet some edges and then finally shell the bottle. The first fillet we want to add is going to be running along this edge, which starts in front, wraps over the top, and then ends up dropping down into the back. And what we want to do is use a constant width fillet here, because this fillet is going to be going between two surfaces that change their angle with respect to each other quite a bit. So we'll go to fillet, and we will use the face fillet option, and we will first select all the faces that represent the front and the sides and the back. So that will be this face, these side faces, and the rear face as the group 1 faces. And then for group 2, we will select this face here. You see that this is not making its way all the way around, so we'll also include this face, and finally this face. and we will change that radius to be about 0.08 inches. And finally, what we will do is change the option to chord width so that the fillet will appear to be the same width wrapping around the entire length of its travel. Now we'll add some fillets to the handle edges. This can just be a normal edge fillet, and we'll use a fillet radius of 0.06 and select this edge and the mirrored edge back here. Next is a fillet at the base of the bottle. Again, this will just be a normal type of a fillet using the edge, and we will use a radius of 0.2 and just click on an edge, and tangent propagation should just carry it all the way around the perimeter. Going back up to the neck area, we'll add a fillet to this edge here. We'll make this 0.05. Click on this edge. It should go all the way around automatically. If it doesn't, click on the extra pieces of the edge to make sure that it completes the full perimeter. One last edge to fillet up in the neck area. This will be a very small fillet, 0.02, clicking around this perimeter here. And finally, we only have one last fillet to make, and that's going to be in the domed area. We want to fillet this edge here. And this again will just be a normal edge fillet, 0.05, and tangent propagation should carry it all the way around. We are now ready for the final step, which is to shell this solid bottle. And the only open end of the bottle is up here at the pour spout, and we're going to use a thickness which is less than any of the outer edge fillet radii that we used, and that's going to be 0.04 inches. All of our outer edge fillets were 0.04 or greater, so now we just have to go to our shell command. We will use the thickness of 0.04. We'll click on the surface that is supposed to be open when we shell it. That's the top here. Click the check mark, and now we have a completely shelled out bottle. I will just briefly turn off all of the edges and turn on my curvature. We can see everything is smoothly blending together. The only abrupt changes in color is where a fillet was added. And if I turn on my zebra stripes, I can also see that I get good blending between each half of the bottle. That's it for this tutorial. If you do not have access to the starter files that I used to make this bottle, what I'll do now is just have some stills that show the different sketches that I utilized. Front layout, handle layout, base layout, neck layout, and finally the middle layout, which is located on the right plane.